Hello, DFW family, both those who are going to join the RCW and those in the ICC. We consider you brothers and sisters, and we love you dearly. I wanted to shoot a quick video here to have it be circulated amongst the DFW and Texas and Oklahoma disciples, really debunking a couple of very vicious lies and rumors and fabrications of situations that are currently trying to be cycled around the group at this time. And before I do that, I do want to read you a scripture. It says in 1 John chapter 1, verse 5, it says, "This is the message we have heard from him and declare to you. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. If we claim to have fellowship with him, yet walk in the darkness, we lie and do not live by the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, purifies us from all sins." Definitely a thing that we have tried to emulate and implement in the RCW is just transparency. Transparency with finances, transparency through allegations, and that's what I want to do at this time. And so a lot of what's happening right now is that those of you in DFW may have come to find out that Ron went to Kona, which was kind of interesting. Why did he go there? And the reason why Ron went to Kona was that I believe that there was a thinking that we were going to try and start a church in Hilo, Hawaii, because Evan Bartholomew was going there to visit his family. As you may know, both Kyle and Evan's family are from Hilo, Hawaii. Now, sadly, this was not true at all. We were not planning on starting a church in Hilo, Hawaii, but in fear that we were doing that, Ron was sent to Hilo and was then sent to start, disseminating false and fabricated information to disciples in Hilo, Hawaii, both against myself, Kyle, and some Kip as well. There's a thinking that Kip McKean is behind the RCW. He's not behind this at all. He's had nothing to do at all with the establishment of the restored churches worldwide. He wasn't part of the thinking beforehand, and he wasn't part of the thinking afterwards as well. But I think there's still, though that's been said publicly, I think they're still trying to build a narrative that that's true. So there was things said about Kip in throughout the Hawaiian Islands as well. Now there also was an anonymous Facebook user created that started disseminating information that really only somebody would have known who had gone through USD 21 emails. And I'm sure you would understand who has gone through USD 21 emails for over a decade and has even admitted to it. And in those emails that have been sorted through, there's been, trying to pull out things that could be used to smear myself and others. And then those things have been twisted to the nth degree into a place of absolute falsehood. So I just want to deal with them right now so that I can arm you guys with the truth, as I know that they're wanting to have an all-congregational devotional tonight in DFW, so you guys know from me firsthand any validity to these claims at all. The first one I would go over was that I stole $20,000 to buy a house. One, just to let you know, evangelists never have access to money, or they shouldn't. I've never had access to money. When I was in San Francisco, Cindy Oaks was the administrator who works for a bank herself and used to work for the corporate office in the ICOC back in the day. It was a personal assistant to the McKeans, and it's one of the most strict administrators you're ever going to find throughout the ICC churches. And I never had access to any funds. I always had viewing access so I could see how much money was in the bank account, but never could access any money in any way. The claim that I stole $20,000, where it would generate is that about 5 or so years ago, I was in San Francisco, and Kip is a father in the faith to me, and we were talking, and he had let it be known to me that we would be staying in San Francisco for the rest of our lives. And he said, "Hey, I just want you to stay there and build a church, and you oversee different things." And being a father, he wanted us to make good financial decisions. He goes, "You really got to look at buying a house." And we said, "Well, Kip, we don't make money in order to, afford a down payment." The way pay structure goes in the church is that it's a needs-based pay structure. They look at your budget, you have to submit a budget, and then they give you, a reasonable amount over it so that, you're not in dire need, and that's how they calculate your pay. So the idea of raising money to afford down payments on houses is not really in that type of budget. And so, in talking with Kip about it and him saying, you need to buy a house, and me telling him I didn't have money for a down payment for a house, which would have probably been around $30,000 or so, he said, well, I tell you what I'll do. If you can raise up most of it, I'd give you like 1/3 of it. I'd be willing to give you $10,000 towards a down payment on your house. This was completely unexpected from Sarah and I, and we were very, very grateful for the offer. And through a turn of events, we were able to raise the other 2/3. Sarah's parents gave us a sum of money. Her parents live in South Dakota, and they wanted us to get a house with our kids and all that. And so they gave us some money. We used some of our taxes that year, and we were able to save a little bit. And we were able to buy a house in San Leandro, California. The address is 660 Fargo Avenue. You could look it up if you want, San Leandro, California. I own the home to this day. My daughter lives in it currently. And the home was not $1 million. It was just over $500,000. And if you know the market in the Bay Area in California, $500,000 gets you a starter home. This was a 1,100 square foot house. And again, you can go on Zillow and look up the address for yourself if you like. But we were able to buy the home. And Kip was nice enough to give us those funds. But no money was embezzled, no money was stolen. This was something that my employer offered to me, and with the idea that we would be in San Francisco for the rest of our lives. On the flip side of it, Kip didn't just do this for me. He did this for many people, including Tim Kernan himself. When he bought his first house over in Seal Beach, Kip gave him funds to start that house as well. And he then used the proceeds to buy his house in Dallas. Also on top of that, Tim Kernan was bailed out of credit card debt, not once but twice, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, probably upwards of $30,000 or so. One would also ask, Ron just was put on sabbatical for 1 year, a 1-year sabbatical. Who do you think's paying for that? Maybe it's the church in DFW. Most likely it's the movement, because the DFW church has very little funds to afford something like that. And so most likely missions is going to pay for Ron to be on sabbatical for a year. And the reason why he's on sabbatical is because he told Raul he didn't want to be under Tim anymore and that he wanted to have his own church. And Raul told him that that wasn't going to happen. He said, well, then I want a sabbatical for a year. And that's exactly what they gave him. So the idea that we stole $20,000, not true at all. That is the truth of what actually happened there. There also is a claim that there was a molestation case in our Antelope Valley region. That is true. When we came here in December of 2022, we did become known to us that there was a terrible case of molestation within a family. A grandfather had molested his granddaughter. This case had already been brought to the authorities. The grandfather was arrested, so this was not like a reporting issue. He was already arrested. We were made known of it, and the grandfather actually became a disciple too. Through the process of everything, he became a disciple and went to jail a disciple. And I was there at his last service before he went to prison. He ended up going to prison for 18 years. Now, what happened there was the grandfather was charged, and he was either going to try and fight the case or he was going to settle for a plea deal to go to prison for 18 years and very likely die in prison. This was very hard on the granddaughter, who was looking at maybe being called to the stand as a witness, as the victim of it, if her grandfather fought the case. And to comfort her, we went up to Antelope Valley, and we had a dinner with her. And she did ask us at that time if we would help with tuition for nursing school and for some of her supplies for nursing school. We did help her with some of the supplies. We helped her with the computer, but we never helped her with any of the tuition. There was never any confidentiality or anything like that signed. This was just us helping a young lady who had been through a lot and was looking at possibly going to trial and have to relive all these things. And that's what actually happened. And actually the parents who are disciples stayed with the RCW and are with us to this day. And their daughter, who we helped out, loves us dearly for helping her with those supplies for nursing school. So that's what actually happened there. The Antelope Valley region knew about all these things as they're public, and the grandfather was going to prison. He's in prison to this day. Another allegation was that Sarah and I had CR issues. Sarah and I didn't drink for the first 8 years of our marriage, but then after a period of time, we actually got advice from Tim Kernan, who was discipling us at the time, about possibly opening up our life and marriage to having a glass of wine and that type of thing. He actually suggested that we should do it. He even said, you guys need to have a glass of wine. And there is a lot of known understanding that Tim, drinks. And so anyhow, where the allegation comes from is maybe a year or so after that, Sarah and I did go out on a date. I had 2 drinks, was not drunk at all. Sarah and I got into an argument, and she then called Tim, my discipler, on me. And at the time, me and Tim's relationship was very strange because I stood up to him. Because, he would try and, put me down, and he was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of lying, a lot of these types of things. And I called him out on these things. So we had a strained relationship. And so when Sarah called him that night, he told me that I needed to pretty much pack up and move to LA and give up my position in San Francisco. And I knew that Tim was trying to take me out of San Francisco at the time. So I did have a pretty bad conversation with Tim. And that then proceeded to them wanting us to come down to LA and stay in an Airbnb for 3 weeks while I was basically hammered with the Bible and hammered in discipling. And really wasn't about drinking. It wasn't even about Sarah and I's marriage. It became about my relationship with Tim and me, a lack of letting Tim be a father in the faith to me, and being the subordinate the way he wanted me to be. And a lot of his just overbearing leadership in my life, and it became about that. But during that, they tried to say Jason had and Sarah had drinking issues, but the reality is that Sarah and I do not have a CR drinking issue. We're very disciplined about it. We actually have a notepad in our phone of the different dates a year that we drink, and we have held to that, and we have a discipline with it. The last claim was that leaders in the RCW knew about Kip's sin. Again, this is absolutely false. Nobody knew about some of the purity issues with Kip from RCW. Now, obviously, Ron knew about these things for 12 years and didn't do anything about them. And other world sector leaders did as well. Now, to be very open, in moving to LA and working with Kip on an ongoing basis and talking with him a lot on the phone, there was several times where I was on the phone with Kip, and it had seemed that he had something to drink, and to my shame, I did never say anything about that. So that is true, but that was during a very short period of time during my time being here in Los Angeles. But nobody in RCW knew about all these issues with Kip. And the only person who knew anything about it from RCW was with me, and that was just this last little bit time period of being in LA with Kip McKean. And so again, I just wanted to share these things with you guys to arm you with the truth, to just be transparent, and instead of writing a letter, just talk to you straight. And at this point, I may go on Facebook Live later and do this, but I just want to get you guys a video that hopefully you could circulate this around Dallas, Fort Worth, and arm the disciples for the devotional that they're going to have tonight, and be able to come back and ask Tim about these things, and him getting money, and him being bailed out of credit card debt, and him all these things, and Ron's sabbatical, and who's paying for that, and all these different things. But we love you guys very much, and very excited to be with you very soon.